So one of my favorite applications of all time is called Flameshot. Now, Flameshot is a very simple utility. It takes a screenshot, and then before you save the screenshot, it allows you to mark it up. So you can put text on it, draw arrows, basically do whatever you want. And I loved that thing because it was so astonishingly simple. The problem is that now that I've moved to Wayland seemingly permanently, Flameshot doesn't work as well. It was meant for Xorg, and while you can get it to work on Wayland, it doesn't work quite as well as it used to. So I've been on the lookout for something similar. Now, I have been able to take screenshots on Wayland perfectly fine using Grim and Slurp, but I haven't found an application that does the markup that Flameshot used to do quite as well. So what I wanted to do is take a look today at an application called Gradia. Now, Gradia is interesting in that it does a lot of the markup that Flameshot does, and it takes screenshots, but it is a little bit more complicated than what I was originally looking for. But that is both good and bad. So let's take a look at this application today and see what it does. But before we jump in, if you leave a thumbs up on this video, I'd be really appreciative. It would really help the channel. So let's go ahead and take a look at Gradia. So we're going to go over to my main desktop here, and we're in Hyperland. And basically, what you need in order to use Gradia is to install it. Now, I have installed the Flatpak version of this. I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but Flatpak just seemed to be the easiest way. And in my Hyperland config, you'll be able to see that I have a key binding here for Gradia. So basically it just runs the Flatpak of Gradia using the flag screenshot interactive. And this is how you would be able to launch Gradia without it already running. You can also obviously start it from your app launcher like so. It does basically the same thing, only you have to then hit take screenshot, then take the screenshot or whatever, and it'll do what it needs to do. But for me, personally, I just want to be able to hit a key binding, have it start, and then I can take the screenshot, and then it will launch Gradia, which is what this thing here is. So let me actually close this window here, and you can actually see Gradia when it pops up. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that it sometimes takes a little while to actually load the screenshot. Not a big deal, but it's something that I noticed. The next thing you'll notice is that by default, there's a border here. So you can change the color of the border. You can do a lot of customization for how this actually looks. You don't have to have a border, so you can remove that border completely. So if you remove all the padding, so both of these are so that this is down to 0 and that this is down to 0, you can actually see that there's no longer a border there, which is good. Or you can have those things set back so that the corners are back there, and you can have a padding as well. That gives you a border. So however you want to set that up, that's nice to have. That's something that Flameshot couldn't do, or at least couldn't do out of the box as far as I know. So we'll talk a little bit about the annotation tools here in just a second, but let's talk about the screenshot ability of this thing, because if it doesn't take good screenshots and make it easy to do so, then it's not a good application. And my results on this are a little bit mixed. First off, you notice when I had another application, so let me close this. So let's say I had a terminal open here, and then I used my key binding to take a screenshot. One of the things that if I were to use this application that I'd have to do is ensure that there was a window rule that had Gradia pop up on top of everything else, basically a floating rule. That way I didn't have it here in the stack, and I didn't have to close the window I had underneath in order to actually see the entire screenshot. Another thing about this thing being a screenshot tool is that you have to do something with it. So with like Flameshot, you could take your screenshot and then just hit Control Save and it would go. Technically you can do that here as well, but it takes up your whole screen, whereas with Flameshot it didn't really have a GUI to go along with it. I mean, it does, but it floats on top of everything. There's just tools there, right? So it's just basically integrates with the existing user interface. Whereas with this, there's actually a window there that's taking up space. So it does kind of move things around. So, but I think a window rule would help this. So I'm going to experiment with that and see how that goes. I haven't done that, even though I've been using this for a couple of weeks now. Another thing we should talk about is the annotation stuff. So you can write things. So if you need to write things, with your mouse, you can do that. You can change the color and the size and all that stuff. You can do a actual text here. Just like so, and you can increase the font size of that and choose a different font if you want. There's a selection of a few fonts. Now this does not have access to your entire system fonts for some reason, probably just because they're expecting a huge list. It only has access to 4. So think of that what you will. You can draw a line just like so. You can draw arrows, which is what I usually used Flameshot for. You can do the whole numbers thing if you're doing a tutorial of some kind, like step 1, 2, 3, 4. You can blur things out so that if you need to blur things out, you can do that. And then you can actually do double blur, and it kind of adds to it. You can add a highlighter to this, so you can highlight this here like so. It's a very straight line. You can draw a circle like so, like this, and you can draw a square. All this stuff is customizable with colors, fill colors, the size, and all that stuff. We talked a little bit about the background a little bit earlier. You can make that a solid color, so if you wanted it all black or whatever, you can change it to that, or you can make it a transparent color. You can obviously select a custom color. You can also use an image if you wanted to use an image, so that there's like a background image there. And again, you can turn that completely off if you want to by just removing the padding here and removing the corner radius. You can also add a shadow. And then down here at the bottom, you have the name, location, and screen size. Now, I really wish you were able to name it from here. Like if you were able to click on this and just name the screenshot from here, that'd be cool. Instead, you have to wait until you hit the save action in order to name it. And I also wish that the default screenshot name was the date. Like instead of having this gibberish here and then there an edit there, I really wish that there was a date at the end of this. That'd be much, much better. In the settings, you can change where the default screenshots are saved. You can change the image format, so if you wanted to change it to JPEG or WebP, you could do that as well. You can compress the image or not compress the image. You can change whether or not you confirm on close, which I've already disabled. And you can choose whether or not to trash screenshots on close if you wanted to do that. And then here is where you're going to find some of the things that you'll need in order to create key bindings. So if you want to create an interactive key binding, which is what I've done, you can use this here. If you want to create a full screenshot, this one here, and basically then you just put this in your key binding place. So if you're in GNOME, you go to shortcuts. If you're in KDE, you go to shortcuts. If you're in Hyperland, something like that, you go into your key bindings area of your configuration file, and then you just copy this after the key binding, and that would work. You can see all the directions there. Now, like I said, I really wish that there was an option for being able to save it with the date on it, but that does not exist as far as I can tell. So there's that. You can take another screenshot directly from the UI here, so you can push this and it will actually take another screenshot. And then you can use this to open up an existing image. So if I wanted to open up an existing image, so like let's say this one here, I can open up this one, and then I can actually mark that up. It does take a little while to actually load. I don't know why that is. It takes a little while, and then I can mark it up if I want to. Just, draw a circle there. So there's quite a bit of stuff that you can do here. So the question I had to ask myself is this good enough for a replacement for Flameshot? And my answer to that question is yes. Now I'm going to set that window rule so that it doesn't take up the entire screen or add itself to the stack. I think that will make this much more palatable for me in terms of a replacement. But other than that, it's worked really, really well. I've really enjoyed using this. I like the whole gradient background thing. I think that kind of like makes my screenshots look cool. I don't always use it because I'm just sharing a screenshot. But sometimes if I'm sharing on like Unix porn or whatever, I want to make it look cool. I do wish it had a few extra features, seeing as how they've gone to the trouble of making a whole UI for this thing. I wish you could stack screenshots. So for example, if I wanted to take 2 screenshots and put them in the same actual image, that would be really cool. Doesn't seem you can do that. Another thing I really wish you could do is change the save format so that it had the date in it, so I didn't have to type it out manually. That would be something that'd be cool to do. Other than that, though, it is a really good application, and if you need a application that does more than just screenshotting, this is probably the best one that I've found so far. Now, if all you need to do is screenshot, Grim and Slurp definitely are better than this because they're just more minimal and they just work better. Now, or perhaps you use GNOME or KDE, in which case their built-in tools are probably better than adding another application to your stack. But if you do need the markup capabilities, this is a good option for you. So that's Gradia. If you have any thoughts on that, you can leave those in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. You can follow me on Mastodon or Odyssey. Those links will be in the video description. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/thelinuxcast. There you'll find a weekly exclusive podcast that I put out for all my supporters. Basically, it's just me sitting in front of this microphone spewing stuff for about 15 minutes or so. It's just a ramble. It's even more rambly than the rambles I put on this channel. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, head on over to Patreon or hit the join button here on YouTube. You can support me there. Or you can head on over to the store, which is available at shop.thelinuxcast.org. There you'll find awesome hats like this one here. You can't be a Linux nerd without a Linux nerd hat, so you should get one of those if you have the means to do so. And all the proceeds for that go directly towards helping me make more Linux content for you guys. So thank you so very much for those of you who have done that. Thanks to everybody who does support me on Patreon and YouTube. You guys are all absolutely amazing. Without you, the channel just would not be anywhere near where it is right now. So thank you so very, very much for your support. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.